carved directly from a living mountainside in Hyogo, Japan. This 500-ton monolith is so massive that even modern cranes would struggle to reposition it. Yet, according to the accepted timeline, the people who shaped this stone possessed nothing harder than bronze tools, a metal that physically cannot cut the rock from which it was carved. No identifiable tool marks, no quarry roads, no construction records in any of Japan's ancient chronicles. This is Ishi-no-Hoden, and it is only the first of several prehistoric megastructures across Japan that remain unexplained by modern engineers. At Takasago, Hyogo Prefecture, a vast stone block rises from a shallow pond beside the precincts of Ashiko Jinja. This is Ishi-no-Hoden, a monolith whose presence defies simple explanation. Measured by municipal surveyors, its main faces stretch 6.4 meters across, 5.7 meters high, and nearly 5 meters deep. The block's volume, calculated from both laser-scanned models and water displacement tests, reaches close to 180 cubic meters. With a density typical of local hyaloclastite tuff, the mass comes in at approximately 500 tons, an object so heavy that even the largest modern cranes would need to work in tandem to lift it. Unlike many other megaliths, Ishi-no-Hoden was never moved from a quarry. The stone is carved directly from living bedrock, its rear left unfinished, exposing a sharply recessed base and a triangular projection. No tool marks are visible on the main faces, no chisel scars, no pecked grooves, not even the characteristic pitting left by hammerstones. The surface appears unnaturally smooth, as if it had been separated from the mountain in a single gesture. Modern laser scanning, conducted by the Takasago City Board of Education alongside Otomae University, produced a dense point cloud confirming the block's geometry within a margin of just a few centimeters. Yet despite this precision, no high-resolution LiDAR data or micro-tool mark scans have been released to the public. The monument sits in a shallow pond, a feature that local shrine tradition says appeared alongside the stone itself. Some accounts describe the block as floating, though in reality its base is anchored to the mountain, rising just above the water's surface. The absence of ramps, roads, or spoil heaps nearby suggests that the carving happened entirely in place. Standing beside the block, Professor Hiroshi Koda, who led the laser survey from 2005 to 2006, points out the unanswered questions. How was such a mass separated so cleanly from the mountain? What tools could have shaped its faces, given the hardness of the stone and the supposed limits of Bronze Age metallurgy? And why do the earliest shrine records and chronicles remain silent on the techniques used, mentioning only legends of divine intervention? These gaps in the physical and documentary record anchor the paradox of Ishi-no-Hoden in hard numbers, setting the stage for deeper scrutiny. On the summit above Asuka, a colossal granite block dominates the hillside, Masuda-no-Iwafune, the so-called rock ship. Its measured footprint is imposing, 11 meters long, 8 meters wide, and nearly 5 meters high. By conservative calculation, the monolith weighs at least 800 tons, though some estimates place it well over 1,000 tons. The block's upper face is not left blank. Instead, it features two deep, sharply cut square sockets, one measuring 1.6 meters across and plunging 1.2 meters into the stone, the other nearly matching in size. The geometry of these voids is striking. Their angles are true, their walls nearly vertical, and their bases flat within a margin of centimeters. High-resolution photogrammetry, built from hundreds of overlapping images, has captured these details in three-dimensional mesh, confirming the regularity of the cuts and the overall symmetry of the block. No known quarry lies within immediate reach of the site. The local Nara granite outcrops, which could provide a petrographic match, are several kilometers distant, but no spoil heaps, tool fragments, or transport scars connect them to the monolith. The absence of roads, ramps, or even a clear working platform around Masuda-no-Iwafune only deepens the puzzle. Despite its mass, the block sits atop a steep hill with no evidence of the massive labor infrastructure that would be required to haul such a stone into place. Geologist Dr. Jun Sato, brought in to examine the monument, raises a fundamental question. Does the mineral signature of Masuda-no-Iwafune match the nearest granite outcrops, or was the block extracted from a now lost quarry, perhaps even transported from farther afield? Without direct isotopic sampling, which is still pending, no definitive answer is possible. Dr. Sato proposes a minimally invasive plan: extract microcores from the block and candidate source rocks, then compare their strontium and neodymium isotope ratios. If the block's composition diverges from local granite, the implications for ancient transport and engineering are profound. The twin sockets themselves remain unexplained. Some propose they once anchored wooden beams. Others suggest a ceremonial or astronomical function. Yet, in the absence of tool marks around the sockets or any nearby artifacts, the purpose and method behind their creation are unresolved. Masuda-no-Iwafune stands as a challenge to conventional timelines. It is a monument whose mass, precision, and missing provenance resist easy explanation, and whose investigation has only just begun. The Daisen Kofun in Osaka, stretching 486 meters, stands among the largest burial mounds ever built. Its keyhole outline covers more ground than the Great Pyramid of Giza, with a mass confirmed by GIS data to approach 7 million tons. The mound's slopes are armored with basalt and granodiorite blocks, some tipping the scales at over 300 tons. These stones fit so tightly that gaps rarely exceed a millimeter. Archaeologists note parallel microstriations along their edges, evidence of abrasion, likely from quartz-rich stones, not metal tools. No copper, bronze, or iron fragments have surfaced on the mound, and the construction remains a mystery. The Imperial Household Agency's seal keeps the interior off-limits, so the original methods and organization behind this feat are still unknown. Hundreds of kilometers north, the Ōyu Stone Circles in Akita Prefecture present a different kind of monument. Each of the twin rings measures 46 meters across, built from dozens of granite and basalt blocks, many hauled from quarries up to 10 kilometers away. Dating to around 4,000 years ago, these circles belong to the late Jomon period. Their layout is anything but random. GIS mapping and total station surveys reveal that key stones align with the sunrise at the summer and winter solstices, as well as the major lunar standstills. The precision, within half a degree of astronomical targets for 2000 BCE, points to careful planning and a sophisticated grasp of celestial cycles. These sites, separated by centuries and geography, share a scale and accuracy that challenge simple explanations. The mainstream view credits the evolving societies of the Jomon, Yayoi, and Kofun periods, each with their own tools and social structures. Yet the logistics and astronomical knowledge behind these monuments suggest capabilities that remain hard to reconcile with what is currently known. Bronze tools, the mainstay of Japan's late Jomon and early Yayoi periods, face a fundamental barrier when confronted with stone on the scale of Ishi-no-Hoden or Masuda-no-Iwafune. The Vickers hardness of typical bronze alloys used in ancient Japanese chisels is around 250 HV on the Vickers scale, a value that falls far below the 700 HV seen in granite, and even the 600 HV of rhyolite tuff. When a materials scientist lays a bronze chisel against a granite block, the result is predictable. Instead of biting into the stone, the tool itself wears down. After 1,200 hours of continuous trial work at Hyogo University, using replicated bronze chisels on a 50-ton block, the outcome was shallow scoring, mere scratches that barely marred the surface. The chisels, meanwhile, were reduced to stubs, their edges rounded and dulled long before any real progress could be made. This mismatch in material hardness is not a matter of opinion, but of physics. Bronze at its best is no match for the crystalline structure of granite or the volcanic glass matrix of tuff. Even with repeated hammering or the addition of abrasive sand, the rate of wear on the tool outpaces any meaningful stone removal. In the laboratory, wear rates for bronze chisels show rapid degradation, with edge rounding and micro fractures developing within the first few dozen hours. The surface finish achieved in these controlled trials never approaches the smooth, planar faces seen on the megaliths themselves. Standing beside the battered chisels, the scientist points to a simple conclusion. The official timeline, which assumes bronze as the primary tool, cannot account for the scale or finish of these monuments without invoking either unknown technologies or an unimaginable investment of time and labor. The gap between what is physically possible and what is observed at these sites remains unresolved, pushing the question of ancient Japanese engineering back into the realm of mystery. Engineer Masaru Suzuki stands beside a scale model of Masuda-no-Iwafune, running simulations on a laptop. The numbers are stark. Moving an 800-ton granite block up a hillside, even with the most optimistic ancient methods, demands forces that stretch the limits of what is physically possible without modern machinery. Discrete element mesh models run at Kobe University show that with lubricated wooden rollers on packed earth and a rolling friction coefficient of 0.02, a pull force of at least 98 kilonewtons is needed to keep a 500-ton block moving. That is the equivalent of more than 250 people pulling with their entire body weight, all in perfect unison, just to keep the stone from grinding to a halt. If the path is not perfectly level, the required force jumps even higher. The model assumes mature hardwood rollers, spaced every half meter, and a ramp stretching over 850 meters if the slope must stay gentle enough to avoid crushing the rollers or sliding the stone out of control. The logistics quickly become daunting. Each roller, under the full weight, risks buckling unless reinforced with thick planks, which means even more timber and labor. Hemp rope, the strongest available in the ancient toolkit, can only withstand about 15 tons per strand. To haul a block this size, 30 or more ropes must be braided together, each one at risk of snapping from a single misstep or uneven load. Suzuki's simulation runs through possible scenarios: wet clay sledges, earthen ramps, teams of hundreds, all modeled with the best available data. In every case, the margin for error is razor thin. The physics do not rule out the feat, but they push the boundaries of what a Bronze Age society could coordinate. No ramp traces, no massive spoil heaps, and no tool caches have ever been found on these sites. The numbers remain a silent record of a logistical challenge that modern engineers can only model and still struggle to fully explain. No ancient blueprint, no builder's diary, no carved instruction in the mountain's shadow. Japan's earliest chronicles are silent on the making of its most enigmatic stones. The Kojiki, compiled in 712 CE, and the Nihon Shoki, completed 8 years later, both recount the descent of the kami, the origins of the imperial line, and the legendary feats of gods and heroes. Their pages mention sacred stones placed by divine hands, but offer not a word on the carving, hauling, or assembly of megaliths like Ishi-no-Hoden or Masuda-no-Iwafune. Shrine records at Oshiko Jinja describe the Great Stone as a gift from the heavens, appearing after a thunderstorm, its pond forming miraculously overnight. At Masuda, the rock ship is said to have been carried by the gods themselves. In both cases, the origins are wrapped in myth, not method. The absence of technical records is not just a curiosity, it is a fundamental problem for historians and engineers alike. With no written plans, no lists of workers, no tally of tools, the only evidence left is the stone itself. This documentary void forces researchers to turn to the rocks for answers, to test the hardness of their surfaces, to measure their precise geometry, to search for microscopic traces of ancient tools. Professor Hiroshi Koda, clutching facsimiles of the oldest scrolls, points out that even in the centuries when writing flourished, descriptions of these monuments remain vague and reverent, never practical. The first detailed mentions appear over 1,000 years after the supposed construction dates, and even then they repeat the same legends: stones that floated, stones that descended from the sky, stones that cannot be moved. The result is a gap at the heart of Japan's archaeological record, a silence that compels reliance on physical science, experimental replication, and the rare hints preserved in oral tradition. This narrative gap is not just a missing chapter, it is the central mystery that drives the search for answers, and the reason why each new hypothesis must be weighed against what the stones themselves can reveal. Professor Hiroshi Koda sits at his cluttered desk, a matrix of checkboxes and weighted scores spread before him. The mainstream archaeological model, rooted in the Jomon, Yayoi, and Kofun timelines, has been put through a strict evidence-based rubric. 4 criteria shape the evaluation: technological feasibility, chronological consistency, cultural context, and the results of experimental replication. The numbers are clear. On the matrix, the mainstream scenario scores 0.78 out of 1.0. the highest among all tested models. This reflects strong alignment with established radiocarbon and OSL dates, archaeological finds, and the cultural continuity seen in ancient chronicles and shrine traditions. But even with this high score, the verdict is not absolute. The matrix reveals persistent gaps, critical unknowns that keep the debate alive. Tool technology is one of the most stubborn. Bronze chisels, with a hardness of 250 vickers, simply cannot cut granite or rhyolite tuff at the scale required by the monuments. Experimental trials managed only shallow scratches after hundreds of hours, never approaching the smooth planar faces seen on Ishi-no-Hoden or Masuda-no-Iwafune. Transport physics also leaves questions. Engineering models show that moving 500-ton blocks would have demanded coordination and timber resources on a scale that strains what is known about early Japanese society. Dating evidence, while generally consistent, still leans on indirect associations, charcoal in fill layers, pottery fragments, and weathering rates. Direct exposure ages for the stones themselves remain rare or unpublished. The absence of written records describing construction methods, the missing tool caches, and the lack of ramp or spoil traces all weigh heavily in the matrix final score. The mainstream model stands as the best fit to current evidence, but its foundation is not unshakable. The remaining holes, especially in tool technology and direct dating, are why alternative theories continue to attract attention. As Professor Koda closes his notebook, the unresolved questions linger, inviting a closer look at possibilities outside the conventional view. 3 competing theories stand at the center of Japan's megalithic puzzle. Each makes bold predictions, and each can be tested against the stones themselves. Professor Koda, joined by a team of comparative archaeologists, lays out the experimental agenda. The first scenario proposes a lost advanced civilization. predating the Jomon era. If true, the surfaces of Ishi-no-Hoden and Masuda-no-Iwafune should yield exposure ages of 10,000 years or more. Cosmogenic nuclide dating using beryllium-10 and aluminum-26 could confirm or refute this. This hypothesis also predicts tool marks inconsistent with bronze or stone implements. SEM scans would reveal signatures of harder, possibly unknown materials. No such evidence has been found so far, but the search continues. A second theory suggests survivors of the Younger Dryas cataclysm, bearers of advanced knowledge, spread monument building techniques worldwide. If this is the case, cross-site analysis should show identical ratios of block size to precision and similar astronomical alignments from Akita to Baalbek. Comparative metrics, degree of surface flatness, alignment accuracy, and tool mark morphology can be measured and plotted. If the Japanese sites match global patterns in ways beyond chance, this could support the worldwide diffusion model. The third scenario envisions a coordinated global network of megalithic cultures. This would require not just parallel engineering feats, but evidence of communication or shared methods. Archaeologists are now compiling a database of surface ages, microstriation patterns, and quarry source isotopes from sites worldwide. If unique tool signatures or construction techniques repeat across continents, the global network idea gains ground. Each theory sets clear, falsifiable tests. Absolute surface dating, microscopic tool mark analysis, and global cross-site comparison. Professor Koda's team frames the next phase as an open experiment, where the stones themselves will provide the answers or rule out the wildest possibilities. Replicating even a fraction of Japan's megalithic feats with today's technology comes at a steep price. In 2015, a materials science team attempted to carve a granite block to the same tolerances as Masuda-no-Iwafune. Using diamond wire saws and robotic arms, the project consumed $2 million and ran for months. The lead scientist holds up a length of worn diamond wire, its embedded grit dulled after just a few meters of cut. Even with modern machinery, the effort to shape and finish a 500-ton block to sub-centimeter accuracy proved grueling. This challenge is not unique to Japan. At Baalbek in Lebanon, the largest trilithon stones each weigh around 1,200 tons. Pumapunku's blocks in Bolivia reached 300 tons, with joints so tight that modern engineers still debate the methods. Göbekli Tepe's pillars, dating back over 10,000 years, top out at 70 tons, yet display a precision in carving and alignment that defies simple explanations. Across continents, the pattern repeats: immense stones, tight tolerances, and a lack of clear tool evidence. The theme of precision on this scale puzzles researchers worldwide. Every attempt to reproduce these ancient feats with current technology exposes the same dilemma. The costs are enormous, the timelines stretch on, and the required tools are specialized and fragile. No matter the country, the gulf between what ancient builders achieved and what modern engineers can easily replicate remains striking. The puzzle persists, unsoftened by advances in machinery or materials science. Today, Japan's ancient megastructures stand unsolved. These monuments were carved with a precision that tests both our engineering and our imagination. Mainstream timelines hold firm, yet the missing tools, absent records, and impossible stonework remain. If knowledge was truly lost or reset, what else lies undiscovered beneath our feet? Until the evidence speaks, the mystery endures, challenging the boundaries of history itself. What do you think we are still missing? Let me know in the comments.